My interests are things like sports and music and, going out to pubs and whatever. But I also like to read quite a bit. I went to mainstream schools. It was a good experience, but times were tough. I've also got cerebral palsy, which affects my lower half, both lower limbs. So I've been a wheelchair user sort of all my life, and I go between sort of manual and electrical. But usually when I go out, I've not really used the electric much. I tend to use the manual, which means I need to rely on friends and family because it's more difficult to get around this area in a manual chair. Obstacles come up you wouldn't think would appear, but they do. When I left school, I still had a good support network, and I didn't really think too much about the future and my plans and stuff like that. I think I was just enjoying sort of being young because I had all my friends around me and everything. When you're that age, you think it's going to last sort of forever. But as time moved on, I realised that everybody was getting up and moving on, and I started to worry more about the future. And because we weren't introduced to any of these sort of services beforehand, I didn't know how it was going to be or what I was going to do, and I almost wanted time to stand still.
A few months ago, David was suffering from severe depression that had lasted several months, and I really was at a point I didn't know where to turn. We were attending a GP, not getting really a lot of support at that time from the GP, and I found myself wandering past the local care centre here in Helensburgh, and I thought, I'll go in and ask for advice. I need some help here. I don't know where to go or what to do. It was the best thing I could have done. I went into carers, I spoke to people for a couple of hours, and that's where I learned about Simon and community contacts.
Back in November time, I received a phone call from Neila. She was just looking for anybody to talk to who would give her some information. It was clear that there was going to be quite a bit of building up of trust. So we arranged to go for a bowl of soup. Arranged for an hour, and it was nearly 2 hours. Chatted through all sorts of things. Neila shared lots of stories of how the family had been, of how in recent times life had got difficult for Dave and for her, and that it was now at a stage where she felt she was needing to reapproach the social work teams again, but really didn't feel able to do that and was looking for support.
Any sort of form that would usually be difficult for someone to fill out, or it might be seen as a big task. I think Simon's kind of broken it down and made it more simple and told us exactly why we need to do something and what it's for. And he's been a support dealing with social work, and if there was any big sort of meetings that I would have to be part of, Simon would kind of represent me when I wasn't too well. So if I wasn't able to communicate this, as I can now because I was unwell, Simon would fill in the gaps a bit.
Quite a lot of the work that I have done with Dave and Neila has been that regularity of contact and of helping to build the confidence, of talking about different possibilities and beginning to explore those. So there have been some visits, I've supported with some visits to some agencies. I have signposted to other agencies and supported when those workers have come to visit at home, and where there has been paperwork that they've needed some help with, some quite significant form filling recently, I've been able to advise with that. But Dave is in a place where he's much more able to make those choices and to speak for himself now than he was just a very few weeks ago, really. And we know that might ebb and flow a little, but his confidence is really coming back, and certainly in completing this most recent form, such a lot of that work was Dave's.
Having Simon around has made me feel, right, somebody's on my side, they'll steer me if I go off in the wrong direction. He's been involved with coming up to physio again because David needed more physio. He's paid attention and cared where you feel you're desperately alone sometimes in this world. He's been around when we really desperately needed him. David, in fact, said the other day after a phone call from Simon, I really like that. Yeah, I've spoken to Simon and I feel better. And I thought, well, that's quite something, because we really we were getting into a pattern of bringing each other down. David would upset me with things that he was saying. I probably upset him with things I was saying. And we've got somebody else now that helps guide us through this journey, if you like, with social work and hopefully self-directed support.
I'd like to be out and be more independent and stuff like that, and the whole idea of a personal assistant and the thought of having my own place, being able to live on my own, you know, independently, I think that's great, and I think it's good that Simon's kind of introduced that to me, because I didn't really have any hope for that. So that's what I've seen for the first time in years, is that there are ways around this. It's not all doom and gloom and disappointment. It doesn't have to be, if you don't want it to be.